Okay, I'll call to order our Tuesday, August 9th City Council work session. I need approval of the agenda. Oh, so moved.
Second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Yes.
For those who can't tell, Brandon and Robin are on Zoom. So just FYI, we will jump right into our public comment. Didn't see anybody sign up, but I have to ask.
I forgot to sign up. Eric Ostrander, PO Box 97. My comment had nothing to do with anything on the agenda. It was directed to Chief Shemmerhorn. I wanted to congratulate the parking aides. They are doing a spectacular job this year. Thank you. I don't know if you like onto them or what, but they're really getting after it. So
Very good.
wanted to commend them.
Thank you.
Pretty exciting.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Eric. Anybody else on Zoom or in the house? Public comment? Okay, not seeing any. We will move on. Our first item down here somewhere, NH Elementary School Rejuvenation. So Bruce, you want to get us up to speed?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This started out to be a discussion about how we would do the next phase of communication with the public and with the council. We're now in schematic design, and Dustin Johnson, who's on the phone, was we were having a meeting with Rusty, and as we were looking at the project schedule, which is the document that I sent that I said was liquid, and it probably is more liquid than what I thought. As we were looking at it, we realized, we knew that parking and the food pantry were issues on the site. As we looked at the schedule and trying to say, okay, well, this is the first time we would present to council, it became clear that if we're going to present anything related to the site, we have to have parking resolved. And it would be good if we could resolve the food pantry side, because it's sitting now in the middle of the site. And I have listed a bunch of options here that we could potentially take. But if the decision was made to either to relocate it or to replace it with a new structure or portables or something, it's possible it could be relocated to try to maximize the experience on the site. And so for us to make the progress that I think that we all want to make on the project, just pointing out that first, that the food pantry, we've started that discussion. I don't think there's anything can happen unless you come to any great realizations, but we will be presenting on September 13th the costs for running utilities and roads and those kind of things to a couple of the sites that we had listed, we had put on the list. So you'll have that information as of September 13th. And I'd like to go through, if I can go through those on the food pantry, and then I'll go back over to parking. The sooner we can get some sort of a response or direction from the council, we'll be able to do much more with direction. If it takes a little while, then we can do more focus on buildings and possibly maintain that schedule. But we would like to have the two of them run parallel. So the first option with the food pantry, and these are just general options without a lot of detail, and that would be to move to another location. We've had that discussion. The relocation costs and zoning considerations are scheduled for the September 13th work session. If relocation is the direction chosen by council, staff will find a way to make it work. And by that, I mean, we will need to find funding and other things. We think if it's going to move to another location, it probably would not occur until the beginning of FY 23-24 due to budget considerations. We can leave the existing structure on the site and do repairs. That's the second option. Staff will, like I said, preform, will perform a more thorough analysis of the costs, present those to council, and make recommendations for funding. CETA, who is our architectural partner, will assume that a food bank structure will remain in the current location for their short-term design considerations. Another option is that the food bank stays on the current site, but not necessarily in the current location. From everything we know now, the current structure is not movable. Lowest cost, but maybe not the best option for the site is to purchase portables rather than do new construction. With portables or new construction, CETA can be flexible in their locating those, which will open up some site design options. Then there is do nothing. This is possible in the short term, but if the city continues to want to house the food bank, significant repairs or facility replacement will eventually be required. Doing absolutely nothing is not really feasible because some repairs are necessary to make the structure more watertight and slightly more presentable. I don't know if anybody else has any other ideas, but go ahead.
Well, if I have another idea that.
Okay, good.
Talk about. And that is do nothing in the short term.
Mhm.
And once the event center is up, classrooms,
Mhm.
move the Tulavana Arts facility activities to the new event center
Mhm.
and utilize the Tulavana building.
Okay.
Or the food pantry.
Mhm.
They have their workload is on Wednesday
Mhm.
afternoons. The school closes early Wednesday afternoons. There's an hour gap there. It would probably have to be enlarged a bit for storage.
Mhm.
And I would suggest that part of the funding could come from community grants.
Okay.
So something to mull over,
Okay.
I think would solve some of those problems.
Okay. And Mike, if I can ask one question, I'm not clear from the explanation you gave. When Tulavana Arts moves, would they move into the existing structure? Or would one of these other options of either relocating, putting portables, whatever? Or is that to be determined?
I guess to be determined, but my view of it is they could move into the new event center. And to have all the classrooms.
Oh,
They're not using them all the time.
Mhm.
They hold events there. A lot of them are for visitors as well as locals.
Mhm.
And if we made that decision early, that concept could be woven into the schematic design.
okay. I see that. Okay. And I'm not sure exactly how big the existing building is, but we have the approximately 1,000 square foot classrooms. So, and they wouldn't need the performance space like they have now because they've got a whole building performance.
And they wouldn't need the kitchen because we'll have
Yeah.
catering facilities.
Yeah.
I don't think they need as much space.
Mhm.
And anyway, I think it's something that ought to be looked into.
Okay.
That might alleviate some of the negatives on. Well, everything has a negative to it, but
Sure.
this might be another alternative that would satisfy more of the desires.
Okay. All right. So clearly we have a fifth option. Is there anybody? Some options are going to be combinations of some of these 4 or 5 with Mike's addition, but need to.
Yeah, my initial reaction was the option 2, but to really consider where the repair, how much repairs. I mean, if it's a full repair or if it's enough to keep it running, depending on how long it might take to make a decision on what else to do with it, or to go with Mike's idea. I think that's kind of depends on the building itself and what level of, I know it's going to take a lot and we've had people look at it.
Yeah.
But again, that's priority.
Yeah.
What choice do we want to make on that? My initial reaction was the food pantry section was not in the scope of the procedure to look at.
Yeah.
We have added that as a consideration, kind of because it's the site. So it is an important part of what do you do. But I think we don't have a quick answer to move them.
Mhm.
So it's there.
Mhm.
It's gonna be there for a while. If Mike's idea works out, that's a great. But that requires us to have the buildings up and running for 12 hours.
Mhm.
So,
One thing, if the design assumes that that building will not be there long-term. And we put off, I'm not picturing anybody building a structure on that site,
Mhm.
but really landscaping it, maybe it made a picnic grove, things like that. Those could be acknowledged that those come in the future.
Mhm.
Once they have a home for the food pantry, without spending a lot of time on the landscaping and design. One thing that would have to be considered though is ingress. The way we're going to drive in to the back, but I think that's
It's a
probably well said already.
Yeah, in the dirt road. Okay. All right, let us take the 5. And I would rather not wait until the next workshop because that's a month that we would lose. Maybe if we can bring it back, if there's another meeting comes up, or maybe the meeting on the 6th, just to pick up some time.
May I say something?
Sure.
Okay, I'm curious about how compatible the food bank is with the school. I'm just throwing that out. The other question I have is, I think CETA has the ability to design something where the food pantry is to complement what's going to be there. So I did like the idea of the food, the garden and cooking things and having the tribe come and show people how to do different things too. I don't see that classroom being a full-time replacement for the Tolovana Art Center. So those are my ideas.
To my mind, Robin, the first question I think was the compatibility. That's
Yeah.
really something that the council would need to decide. So that's kind of in y'all's court. And I don't know if there's any, information or anything that we could provide that would help you make that decision. I think that we're a ways away from any programming so we could say, okay, well, that wouldn't be compatible because we're going to do this. One thing we have looked at is that they are open on Wednesdays. And so from a scheduling standpoint, we could make sure there wasn't a conflict, but I don't know for that one day for them, but I don't know if there's any other impacts to us that we're aware of now. So we can make that part of the discussion if you wish, when we meet on our next opportunity.
Yeah, I would like that. And I also think CETA has a lot of good imagination and might be able to come up with something that would be very nice for the food pantry, since they have experience in that arena.
Oh, yeah, if we remember right now, the food pantry is not part of their contract. What they're doing is more or less pretending it's not there until we make a decision. If we were to make it part of the contract, we would have to find general fund funding probably, because it wouldn't be able to pass muster as far as using TLT funds. But it's totally possible to do that. I agree with you that CETA has the ability to go ahead and do a really good job if that was put onto the project list. But there would be, we would have to find a way to fund it and some other things. So, and what I was starting to talk about is I think that we can come up and narrow these down and say that, well, if we were going to move, it's easy. We just leave it there until we buy something or do whatever. And then it would probably be beginning of 23, 24 before we would even be under contract. So that's something that we would be able to do. leave the structure. I think that we can do some, get it down to maybe 2 without having to define everything about it. So for example, with number 5 is Mike was talking about, that's one that we would say it would go to another location. And so, yes, we have got that space now to open and do whatever, and another consideration for a tenant. So that's what I'm saying. So some of these can get pulled into each other. I'm sorry.
I have a couple of questions. You said that on the 13th. September 13th. Relocation and costs and zoning considerations are scheduled for September 13th. Do you know which locations the staff is looking at?
Karen, do you remember which locations we're doing the report on?
It was Colorado cache site,
Okay.
obviously the current spot, over by the RV park.
Mm-hmm.
The RV parking by the recycle and trail, where the big
Right.
RVs can park.
Pretty much all of them.
So all of them that have been proposed.
One more that you guys scratched about.
Echo.
Yeah.
Echo was
Oh,
thrown
Echo.
out. Echo's
Took Echo
thrown out,
off.
though.
And on the RV park, are you looking at the area near the electric vehicle area?
It's the area by our pump station.
So it's on the west side, southeast.
You're right.
Yeah, around the corner there.
Okay.
Because I think that location by the where the electric vehicles station would be a better site, frankly.
It'd be a lot of conflict.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
well, we're used to conflict.
Yeah.
We're good at it. But I do like Mike's idea about the total bonus.
Either way, what we have to tell CETA today, or as soon as possible, is that we're not doing anything right away with the current food bank. If we go with, fixing and repairs, or if we go with Olivana Hall, that's a decision down the road somewhere, not right away.
But the decision that they do need right away is, are you leaving it there? Will there be a new building or a repaired building or whatever? At the end, when we walk away and do the ribbon cutting, will the food pantry still be in that exact location? They need to know that. Or if it's not going to be, it kind of opens up the whole west side of the site.
So I
So,
agree with that potential. Sure, it might open it up. But right now, we're leaving it where it is until we have a better decision. And that would be a phase 2 situation. So if they want to put in some sort of contingency that might be an open space sometime in the future, it quite likely will be. But that's nothing that's happening within this current project.
I think that's the decision we're being asked to make, is to whether or not
That's the answer I'm giving for that decision.
you
guys,
yourself.
yeah, you guys kick in, but that wasn't part of the scope. It was what we originally talked about. The food bank stays where it is until sometime in the future, we make a change. I agree as a designer that you want to consider that that's going to be gone sometime in the future. But
yeah, and I understand what you're saying, Sam. I think that in the interest of the design, that if it's not there, it's one site, one site that you're looking at. If you got it, and then you say, okay, we're going to go ahead and add this for a while. Leaving that for a while precludes a lot of other things from happening that you would have probably proposed had the decision been that it's not going to be there. So if you've got, yeah, I think that if that site, if it was not there right now, we would be in a better situation from a design than just saying that it's going to be there till sometime in the future. To me, and it's fine, but to me, that just says, then we're going to be in that site in a building, maybe that one or another one, and that decision is made. But having the almost maybes or whatever's, depending on how long you're waiting, we might miss something. But if it's longer term, then that's one of the choices that we have.
I guess I'd like to know what design considerations would be precluded if we told CETA that buildings will be there and during the construction and design, we don't know when it's going to move, but eventually it will move.
Oh, if eventually it will move, then they can go ahead and design around that. But I mean, one of the obvious things is that you have a really pretty part of the site on the west side of that building.
Oh, no, that's,
And so if the building's there, you really can't touch that unless you can work around it and things like that, as opposed to having from the asphalt all the way to the edge of the property. So it does make it two different sites. And we can make anything work, and CETA will make anything work. But if these decisions are possible, then we will have a better palette, or what do you call it? Big canvas from which to work.
if we tell them that it will be gone, so they can have that open space to work with, not putting in structures, but landscaping, and their view sites may be a little different and so forth. But if we make that decision, we better know where the food pantry is going.
Right.
And so that, I guess what you're saying, we make that decision right away. If we can't make a decision right away,
Stay there.
I'm not sure we could, if we made that decision today, that it's gonna go, pick 1 through 5, or any of those other sites. I'm not sure we can have those other sites ready and have the food pantry moved so that CETA has full access to do whatever they want to do. It seems like we got to get that, unless we put up portables somewhere and slap them down over at the RV park. I think that's the only viable option if we want to move the food pantry fairly quickly. And I think we have to move the food pantry fairly quickly if we want to have all that, have CETA have the freedom to design the site with the food pantry gone.
So I see that happening over a year from now. Because they weren't, and Dustin, if you can help me with this, when were you looking to start construction?
Currently, we have it scheduled for around the 1st of July, 2023.
Okay, so it's almost a year, and they can be doing work inside the buildings, other places, all that, until this is taken off the site. So realistically, I think you have, at least a year before you would have to move it, if that was the decision.
Well, I think
Maybe
another logo.
You have a year before you have to move it. But prior to that, you have to have a place to be used as a food pantry. So the food pantry has to be up and operating before you tear down the old one.
The locations that we have, I don't think it would be that hard. Most of them have utilities. There are properties, there are zoning issues, I think, with some, and Jeff would have to elaborate on that. But we could get, water and sewer to any one of the locations. So I think that could be easily accomplished in a year. I think that, to me, the bigger question is not, can you accomplish this or can you get this done? Is what is best for the site? What would we be the most proud of? What's the best use going on in that location? And then we can work backwards from that. And I'm just trying to not back into something as opposed to looking forward to it.
Yeah, and if you look at it that way, it's real easy to design with the consideration that the food pantry is not there. As long as you don't put anything that's critical to the scope of the project in that space, because that probably won't happen, I would say, much longer than a year. That's because I don't think we're going to be able to commit to moving the food pantry at any time soon. But you could easily design the site to say, okay, yes, someday in the future that's going to change.
And yes, Sam, I know. And but I'm afraid what you back into there is that it will be landscape. Because it may be, as they get working on the site, that a structure there would be perfect if they could do it. But we're saying that can't happen because this is going to be in that location. And that's what I'm saying. I'd like to see it, as wide open as possible.
But we have no consideration in the scope for a structure in that site. So all you're doing is designating, oh, yes, that is a space that could have a structure sometime in the future. So you just line it out and say there's a structure there sometime. We don't even know what it is yet.
Right, and there are no restrictions anywhere else on the site. So we really don't know what can be done on the site. We don't know what will be proposed for the site.
Could CETA give us options in terms of what would be done with that site? If the food pantry isn't there?
Probably.
So we know what we're talking about?
Yeah, and I think there might be, I think that would be an additional scope because it's not in the scope now. And so we could, work something out with them and then try to have that work done when we eventually do get to present you schematic design.
I think that at least we would know what we are giving up or we're not giving up.
No, it's gotta be.
And instead of depending on whatever we want to do in the future, whatever the future is.
My view of making that the best site it can be is to remove food pantry.
Yeah.
And all I'm suggesting is that CETA does a design, consider that will be open space. Now, whether we can have it, a new site identified and the building moved before construction is completed, that's the question I have. I think ultimately we have to say that as a council, we need to make a decision that the food pantry will be relocated. And we've got 3 possible sites, I think.
And you let
That would
information.
see it, to do a design as though the building's not there.
We can do a design whether we say there's going to be a change or not. We can still do a design. The thing is that, by the time we're at the point where we're moving the food pantry, there's always a chance for new ideas to happen then. We don't have to commit to anything at that site. And options are the great way to do it. I mean, so throw in the longhouse idea has been thrown out several times. That's a good spot for a model longhouse. It's a great spot for a kiln or a foundry. It's a great spot for a playground, not a playground, but educational playing features, things like that. So there's a whole bunch of options that we're not committed to making any decision on that right now, or even through CETA's current scope of work.
Sam, as the one managing the project and the one working with CETA and saying, make these things happen. What I'm hearing is we don't need to do anything like that for the site. We'll figure that all out later. And we can take that out of the scope, because if it's all going to be, well, maybe this, maybe that, you really don't have a design. And then you don't have anything put in the contract drawings for that portion of the work. And I was under the impression that we wanted to have as close to a completed project as we could.
Including the land.
Yeah, and if we're going to do something for the tribe, and we know what we're going to be doing for the tribe, and if we're going to have, an entertainment area or something, that we would have those, as opposed to the site that we have now, that things could happen in the future. I get that. But it's John's call.
At the next meeting, if we have a good handle on what is available or what's possible at these alternative sites for the food pantry, perhaps we can make the decision right then. Yeah, we like this site. Let's plan food pantry will move there. Then we have to start planning, how are we going to move it? Is it going to be portables? Is it going to be a big structure? Is it going to, who's going to pay for it? Food pantry, you're going to have to raise funds, fundraising, grants. We're going to have the taxpayers pay for it. There's a lot of, how are they going to be done?
Okay, in the discussion Sam and I were having, I think what I want to do is have as much of the project thought out, built as we can, and not have a bunch of items that we'll do that later. We can do that. We can discuss parking later or something like that, because we have to know with these things. And there's also going to be a problem, I think, potentially with financing. Because we're going to be looking, we've, committed to a certain amount of work to be done. We need to get additional funding with it. And so we need to be, they want to know what it is that we're going to do. And I don't know how, it's based on the plans, TBD is going to play out. And we can try to get those answers.
Yeah, but I'm going back to what our original discussion was about scope of work.
Mhm.
We eliminated the food pantry. It was not in the scope of work.
Mhm.
We can easily, during the design, do the thought out. We can think out what will be there when it's not there. But it doesn't have to happen in this cycle. We can build it later when the food pantry is not there in the future. We can think it out, we can plan it, and we can set the design.
Mhm.
The budget and the scope of work that we have right now is for everything else. It was not included in that spot.
Excuse me, Jen, I can't hear Sam. Do you repeat that?
The budget or now I lost it. But scope of work said that we were going to think about the food pantry later and to leave that alone. But we don't have to. We can think about what could go there in the future.
Okay.
It's not part of the budget to be built on.
And I get, and actually there is an option for that. And that is that we assume it's going to be on the site. And so that we have direction and we will work around it.
No, what I'm saying is you can still plan for a phase 2. And you can say someday we're going to put a longhouse there. Not this project, but the next project, and commit ourselves to what will be there. It's just not in the budget to build that yet. Nor is the space, because the food pantry is going to stay there for a while until we come up with where else we're going to put it and how that's going to work. And that's a different topic.
I guess my concern is with leaving the food pantry there and saying that someday it's going to move somewhere else. We're committing ourselves to two different budgets in a way, because if the food pantry stays, we have to make repairs on it. And those are going to be very costly repairs, considering the damage that's there now. So we have to find some way of paying for repairs there and keeping it as it is. Then since we say also that we're going to move it someday, then we have to have another budget to move it and build a building or bring in portables or whatever we do. I would kind of like to see us say, okay, within a year, the food pantry will move to ABC site. If we move it to Tolovana, we won't have to do as much. We'll have to do some work, but we won't have to, I don't think we'll have to spend nearly as much to improve the Tolovana site as we would to make the repairs on the current site. If we move it to some other place other than the Tolovana site, which is already exists, then we'll have to figure out a budget to move to, put it on another site. But at least we won't have the budget that we would have to make the repairs, which like I say, it's going to be, I think we had an estimate on how much it was going to be.
$100,000.
100,000, Karen?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to do some of that anyway, because that's the roof and the north wall, which is exposed. So, and if we do those, then we can leave it there until, we're gonna do something. But if we want to have the site as is and then options, I think we will ask CETA for a contract amendment to give us what they are under contract for, and then what it would be if that was not on the site. And then that can all be presented to you in schematic design. That's what you want to see.
I'd like to be able to make the decision that before construction on the event center is complete, that food pantry will have found a new home.
Mhm.
And make that, and sooner the better. Make that site, open it up, make it available for a design that, like you say, we can all be proud of. And recognizes the value of that particular site. Make a decision, we're gonna move the food pantry. Then the only decision after that is where and how it's gonna be financed, which we'll have the decisions sooner or later anyway. If we're just gonna say at some time it'll be moved, let's say we'll move it as soon as we can find another site. And then next meeting, never do anything on the next meeting, but perhaps we could identify the site that we would find preferable and do more due diligence on that site, make sure we haven't missed something, and then began to plan the next year's budget on how that's going to be done. In the meantime, CETA knows that that building be removed and they can do their plans unfettered with a bunch of options. And having them give us more options means more dollars being spent that we won't ever end up using, so.
If y'all can give me the direction of what you want between now and September 13th, then we will make that happen. And we can make all of the things that you all had talked about happening. If we are going to, I'm going to speak for Dustin. If we were to add the options that are what it could occur if we didn't do, well, I can't do that because opening that location up changes what you might do on the rest of the site. So it won't be a small job. It may delay the schematic presentation.
Well, let me ask this, if we open up that site, which was not part of the original contract, is that going to change how they look at their landscaping and layout outside of the building?
Absolutely, absolutely. It would also change where they would look at things, say that we were looking at for the tribe or for, as Sam said, a kiln or whatever. It makes sense to make that close to the building. Those kind of things are what, could potentially change.
I'm not sure that we can actually make, I don't know exactly what decision you're asking us to make tonight, but I don't think we can make a decision about anything until we hear the report from the staff on the 13th of September.
Nancy, the only decision I was hoping for is if there was any of these were good or not good. Then you just let us know. And then we can, as we move forward to the 13th or whenever it's going to be, we can go ahead and include that or not include that. So we can make all of those work. In the meantime, too, we can be focusing on the building interiors and exteriors because those aren't going to change, where they are.
Well, I guess my recommendation would be if we're going to start eliminating, I would just say that option 2, leave the existing structure on site and do repairs. I think that's a no-go.
The problem is if you're going to choose anything except moving it, it becomes a go because those things have to be fixed.
If you're going to choose anything
So
except,
if you're going to go ahead and locate it, say that you're going to move it or something later.
well, later might be 8
Right.
months from now or something.
Okay, we could probably, limp it along.
Well, so you're saying that even if we decide we want to move it within the year that CETA needs to do all the construction, say by next July, we still need to do repairs. Do we know what repairs we need and how much it's going to cost to do it?
I think we could probably just do kind of temporary roof repairs and fix the north end.
So it would cost something, but it wouldn't cost $100,000.
I think doing the whole roof and And Karen, there's possibly some electric and others in there.
I think your original quotes that I gave you were somewhere around 100,000, and that was to address the roof, the one wall that had the dry rot and
North end.
that whatnot, and then the 5 windows that were failing.
But this is something that has to be done immediately, if not sooner, right?
They have an active leak that the staff over there has been trying to coddle along, but that's what's causing the dry rot on the one wall.
But if we left it there for, say, 3 years or 5 years or whatever, how much would the repairs, how much more work would we have to do on the building?
That's what the subs have to tell me, because I think you get to a point where that dry rot is obviously going to travel, and we may have damage inside that we don't have today. But the outside siding on all 4 walls would have to be addressed. I mean, we may get away with the one wall now, but the longer you let that go, just like your home, the bigger the problem gets.
And the 4 walls is not in the $100,000 budget, and the $1,000 budget is blown.
The original budget, I don't believe included the siding
Right.
all the way around it. It only addressed the repair on that one side, the roof and the fire.
Yeah.
And I'm waiting for the subs to update that based on our supply chain issues and how much roofing and windows have gone up, so that I can update that for you. And I haven't even been able to get subs to give me a response on our locations that we were looking for. They're all just so busy, they have not had time to give me any kind of a quote or bid at all.
Yeah, because I'm thinking if we do what Sam would like to do and leave it there, and that would mean probably 3 years, 5 years, whatever. I want to know how much it's going to cost to keep it there and keep it within good repair. That's my concern. I don't know if I want to spend that kind of money when I could apply that same money and move it somewhere where it's going to be in the best location and still have the school the way we want to have it. So that's the question I have, the budget that I need to know.
Well, I can tell you that the average of what we've seen this year in the budget, and I presented this to you during the budget committee, is about a 36% materials increase.
Okay, but again, that's just for the north wall and the.
That's right.
I'm talking about if we keep it there for 3 to 5 years and we have to do those other 3 walls and whatever else needs to be done, I want to know what that's going to cost.
So the update that I was hoping to be able to bring back to you when I could get these subs to give it to me
Yeah,
is not only to update the roof, but assuming that if we left it there for a year or more and we had to do the full siding replacement, what are we looking at?
that's what I would like to know.
And so they're not going to give us a bid that's out 5 years because they can't predict material increases, but they'll most likely give me a quote that they'd honor over the course of next year. But even that may change, Nancy, like we've seen with every other quote, they'll come back and say, prices have gone up so much, I have to revise
Yeah.
this. So again, I'm looking at percentages because this is what we've seen, and you could almost be safer saying, without a doubt, it's going to go up 35, maybe 40% each year as the supply chain issue continues. And so, and then any other damage that this causes on the inside of the unit that we're not experiencing today.
Yeah.
That's about as close as you're going to get in the quote world nowadays. Suppliers are just not wanting to go beyond 30 days. And the quote just says it's expired after 30 days. That's how often they're having to update things based on the supply chain space.
Well, if we leave it there, it's just going to be a money pit.
Yeah.
And after we spend the first $150,000, then we're going to be reluctant to move it because my gosh, we just spent $150,000, $200,000. But now it needs another 50,000. Pretty soon it's just trying to put lipstick on a pig.
And that's a fair concern. I was hoping to be able to bring you back an assessment on those sites so that you could do that comparison. And you'd feel better about saying, move it now or wait or whatever. I'm just not able to get the subs to do that. The last quote or the last sub I talked to said you can't get anything from me till late September. We're short staffed, we're slammed trying to get what we have in the pipeline now done in this dry weather. And we're not doing any quotes or bid updates until late September. It's kind of at their mercy until I can get them to respond.
The financing of this is an important part of the discussion. But the other part is timing. There is no way that that's going to be, we're going to be able to move, if we decide to move the food pantry, there's no way we're going to have a food pantry moved in I'd say 12 months. It's not going to happen. So we're going to have a viable building for at least 12 months. Plus, I don't want this to be a ball and chain on the current project to see, get the event center to be moving forward as fast as it can be moving. So
I disagree with one part of that. That is, if we use portables, that can be moved into, if we have a site, we've agreed on a site, we move double wides in a fairly quick order, because I've done it before for a school on a very short notice. And they're portable, they move them in, they put them together, and you go in and finish it inside. They get used for classrooms, they get used for office buildings, they get used all kinds of portable structures that will all be many times better than what we have. That could be done in a year's time. If we can agree on a site to put it on that already has utilities. But if we wait, it sounds like we need to put a lot of money into that building. We might as well say, well, it's going to stay there permanently, because once we start plowing money into it, it's just going to be more and more, and ultimately probably tear it down and rebuild something right there.
I totally agree with you, Mike. The fact that, yes, it could be done quickly if we were not a municipality. If we were an industry, we could probably do it tomorrow. But that's the decision-making process. It's also the fact that we had comments at the last meeting that nobody wanted to move it. So all the active folks in the food pantry don't want to move. We've got to figure out the location. All are have issues with them at some point or the other. The other thing is that how many times have we talked about portables and said the same thing? We talked about portables for the academy several times. Talked about a portable for what could happen here. We've talked about portables for housing over at the RV park. That never happened because every time there was some sort of hurdle that had to be dealt with. So I'm just saying that, yeah, it could be done. If we said to Bruce, get some more portables tomorrow, there would be a process in the works. But I just don't want this to slow down or take money from the current CBE project.
You can't, because it can't be funded that way. It has, and that's the other question I have, is where would we get the funds for either the repairs or the move?
It would have to come from the general fund.
Do we have that kind of money?
You'd be depleting it significantly, but it is there.
I think we have to ask ourselves if we want to spend general fund to do that.
And to me, this isn't an emergency. I'd like to see it reserve in the general fund to cover things that absolutely have no choice to take care of.
Can we get back to the original question? I think is, to me, yes, we're going to have to spend some funds to either repair it or move it. But how does that affect the design team for the site plan? That's the original question, correct? Because the design team can either design as if it's not there, or they can design with the fact that it might be there for a while.
I think that, yes, that is the main question. Concern that I'm having with what I'm hearing is that we'll just decide later. And as we do that with decisions, things become more expensive. We lose options.
No, it doesn't come more expensive. It's,
If we do it later than this contract. And we have money in this contract.
but what we could decide on tonight is that we could say, yes, design something for us in that spot. We're just not gonna build it right away. That's a big difference. We can say, okay, yes, we're gonna put a kiln there at some time in the future. Okay.
Right.
And then we'll have this design ready to go when we have new funds to do that.
Can I ask Dustin if that is conceivable, possible, or
Mhm.
desirable?
Sure.
Thank you, Nancy. What I would say is, we would look at this as any kind of constraint. If we think that the building is going to be there for any period of time, that, in place while after this rejuvenated site has been designed and updated and in use, then we need to be able to fit the current program in that space and be able to accommodate that food bank. And that's going to be one design option. Would we come up with a different option if we knew that we had that space available to us? That is also, quite possible, maybe even likely, but that doesn't mean that it would be a more or less successful project. It would just be potentially a different answer. But design's a subjective thing. I think there's ways to go about designing the site, meeting the current program while leaving the food bank in place, showing you broad stroke options along the way. As Bruce mentioned, it's not in our scope, but we are your partner in this, and we want to see this, successful as much as anybody. So showing you what options should be considered in moving or leaving the food bank. And I do think what it sounds more and more like is that we just need to consider the fact that the food bank might be there for some period of time, and that we need to fit the program on the site with the food bank. And the other thing I want to point out too is during our public outreach events, there were a lot of people not associated with the food bank who commented about the food bank, and the vast majority of those folks also stressed the importance of the function of that food bank and expressed the desire for it to stay on site. So Nancy, did I answer your question?
I think so. I'm maybe not fully, but and gave me enough to consider.
If we left the food bank there and rebuilt it or repaired it, I guess, and my concern is once we make a decision, it's going to stay there for a while. I think a while will be a long time.
Mhm.
Then the question is, can it be dressed up or repaired or remodeled to be compatible in visually with the rest of the site and be so it's not just like a sore thumb sticking out there in the middle of this beautiful site envision.
I know that can be done.
Okay. Not in the scope of their contract, but it could be done.
They'll work with us. I know. I mean, we'll have to do some contract change, but they're not the same as some other firms I've worked with.
Well, I guess I'm not in favor of it being moved. That might be the most acceptable solution. Leaving it there, somehow coming up with money. I don't know where it's going to come from. And no matter what we do, but somehow coming up with money to dress it up so that it is compatible with the rest of the site. The architect, I don't know what that would look like, but then at least in doing that, we don't have all these options. There it is. Gonna design around it. And if we side contract or something else to fix that building up, so we can find the funds.
Mhm.
We don't have the arguments with the NIMBYs, where else we go. You know, the whole group doesn't want it in the RV park, the whole group that's going to complain about losing parking spaces by the recycle center. Another group, you know, down at, forgot what the other one was, Tolovana. They didn't want to see, people don't want to see changes. That's what it gets down to. Nobody ever wants to see a change, and yet we're forced to make some changes. That would perhaps be the least objectionable to the most of the public. Certainly not my favorite choice. I'd rather see the landscaping and a longhouse that addresses that really cool grove of trees and openness to the river and the beach. But they'd rather have a food bank there than. But I don't know what everybody's saying, but Justin's correct, and a lot of people haven't thought through all the issues that we have to think about. They'll leave it there. There are a lot of issues with that. Oh, wait till they start complaining about spending $500,000 to repair it, or, you know, to bring it up to the specs and code to make it a permanent facility.
Just to touch on financing for a little bit. I was trying to think through it. I don't think that there's any way, like, we know that we may have to tie on some additional funding for Cannon Beach Elementary onto the City Hall bond issue. I don't think that the nature of portables, we could try to tie portables in a new location or repair of this portable to that funding source, because they want at least 30 years for any money that they're going to put in. So as I'm working around that, I don't know if there's grants available for something like this, but I don't see, unless there's a grant, somebody give us money, I don't see a situation where we're not having to use general fund.
I agree.
I'm really concerned about staying on budget. I think maneuvering money is not a good idea. And I think we need to stick to the budget that we have and work with it.
Okay. The budget for this project is untouched. The budget for doing work outside of the scope of the project, which would be possibly moving moving or improving the food bank, that is not in any budget yet.
Yeah, there is no budget for that.
No.
And if we keep it there, we pretty much have to rebuild it. I mean, from what I'm reading in terms of the necessary repairs and so forth, we're going to have to pretty much rebuild it if we're going to keep it there. And
New modular.
And if I remember right, you said that portables would cost to move a portable in there be $300,000.
No, just to buy the portable.
We got
Buy the portable.
Yeah.
And then you have the cost of moving it
Transport.
and putting it either in place and hooking it all up and doing everything that needs to be done. I remember when we had portables there and the Seaside Food Bank moved that portable from the school site there to their site. And I remember talking to the people involved there when they did that, because unfortunately it was my idea for them to do it. They said it would have cost in terms of labor and in actual cost, almost as much to do to do that as it would have cost to actually put a new one there.
I think you'll find that this time too.
Yeah.
If I'm making a suggestion here. If we're trying to go ahead and make a decision, the potential lowest cost to the city would be to keep it in its location and do the repairs. If we're going to do that, we're probably going to keep it there for a while. And so maybe I would say that don't look at the options or whatever, just have CETA do whatever they have with this particular thing in that location, possibly modify their scope some. It would include bringing that into, you know, the whole, into the whole scene. And that way the decision is made. And we know it's going to cost more. We know it's going to cost, you know, it would, we think at this point will have to come from general fund. So this reduces the amount. It provides some certainty for the site for a certain amount of time and provides some certainty for the food bank. I do know that the tribe is in favor of the food bank staying there. So because there was not a lot of certainty in the discussion we had, that provides some, keeps options open, but it pushes them further down the road because of the money it'll cost to repair that particular structure as is.
Yeah, I understand that.
Making the decision to keep it there is the only way to plan and move ahead, because then the decision's made. We don't have to go through scouting out other sites and trying to address that and all the public hearings and listening to all the complaints about it. Just leave it there. We don't have, in my view, the perfect, beautiful site. But if we spend the money to repair it, which sounds like we're gonna have to anyhow, or we spend the money to move it, spending the money to repair it's probably less expensive because utilities, everything are there.
Yeah.
And just build the facade, the structure, modify it so it's compatible with the rest of the structure, and it just stays there.
Yeah.
Decision be made, move forward. CETA says, okay, there's this building sitting right there. We work around it, recognizing that there may be some ways to integrate it in.
And make it better. Yeah, and I think that with the options that we're talking about and the options that we were looking at bringing back September 13th, your starting point is 300,000 for each one of those, because it involves a new portable, at minimum a new portable. A new structure would cost more if we were trying to match any other kind of compatibility. So, and again, the source being what it is, this is maybe the most conservative move we can make, and then move on.
And the only limitation for us to ever do anything else in the future is our own desire to move it after we've just repaired it.
Yeah.
And that's a decision down the road,
Right.
and it doesn't preclude us from doing something different there in the future.
Right.
Okay, how about the next topic?
Well, was that a decision?
I'm good with it.
I can live with it.
I can live with it, but boy, it's gonna cost money and we've got to figure out where that money's gonna come from.
I can live with it. One thing too, I was looking at the dates, and I think there are conflicts with planning commission meetings and
Yeah.
design review meetings.
You're right, Robin, there are. And depending on where we end up on some decisions, we may actually be pushing out some dates we were talking about coming to you. The reason for providing the schedule, this one hopefully will be relatively easy, but I wanted you to see a schedule that showed something that comes to the council. First, it would come to staff. And then it would come to, we would, within a day or two, we would send it to the tribe because we committed to submit everything to them. And then probably within 5 to 10 days, there would be a presentation. The first one would be a community outreach event, COE. We would have that. And then, so then the schematics, as they are at that time, would be presented to council and the public. Public could comment, the council could comment. CETA would take that information and then go and update the schematics. And I don't know if that was maybe a month or something like that. And then there would be another meeting. The way that it was written, my intention would be to go ahead and have it, come to the city, we provide it to the tribe, and then we do another COE that would end with a decision. And then we could go to the next phase, be it design development or the second phase of doing the design. So the part that I want you to think on is having a meeting with the public and then updates. Would you be ready, do you think, to make decisions? Or do you want us to put another meeting in the middle in there so that you have two looks at it before you had to make a decision?
It's easier to have too many and cancel one
Sure.
than to add another one.
Okay, and we can bring that up. We can say, are you? I don't know, somebody was talking. Yeah, we could do that. So 3 is what you want.
Yeah, let's
All right.
read.
Okay, that'll,
Cut it if we have to.
yeah, and that'll change a lot of the dates, Robin.
Well, please block out the planning commission meetings and the design review, because I think a lot of people that serve on those committees are very adept at what is going on, and I love their contribution.
Yes, and we will make that. We did not vet that properly.
Thank
So
you.
we know that we have to, we can't have 2 meetings in this room at the same time, nor do we want to interrupt their schedule. So we'll adjust.
Okay, thank you.
All right, well, thank you.
Thanks, Robin. Brandon, did you have a comment you want to make on food pantry?
I'm sorry, I'm feeling quite poorly, and that's why I'm not in attendance. But
okay.
to answer your question, I agree with the consensus that was eventually come around to.
Okay, thanks, Brandon.
Thanks,
You
Brandon.
bet.
Boy, you sound poorly too.
Don't sound good.
Well, goodness. Okay. Parking.
Okay, we've been talking about parking being the Achilles heel of this project since the very beginning. And we do need a decision on, at a minimum, on what we'll pursue, because some of the options I want to talk about require the city possibly going to the planning commission or council or, doing whatever. So, but I don't know if there are other options. Most of these are not very palatable. But the first option is to stop all work on the Cannon Beach Elementary project until a plan can be made for the project to meet all parking code requirements. It's most likely not feasible and could stop or significantly diminish the project. When we've done the numbers, if you're looking at the gym in particular and say, well, how many people can you get in the gym and how many cars is that? It's an awful lot if we would, and I'm not recommending this, but if we were to try to fit them all on site, it would take up most of the lawn area that's out there. So it's unlikely that we would ever be able to achieve that. So another option is the council takes action to completely waive all parking requirements for the project. Justification would be that we couldn't create this amenity for everybody if we had to meet the parking requirements, because we would have to just diminish so much of it. So it may have legal and political obstacles, would most certainly require council to go through an extended public process and would we would need to minimize the impact on the neighborhood and the city by scheduling events having significant parking requirements during low tourist times. So we would not, bring the Rolling Stones in the middle of July. So that's the idea there. Then the next one, I think, is the one that's probably the most feasible. We maximize the number of spaces that can be created on and near the site, but nothing more. Waive the difference in the required parking in a process like that discussed in parking option 2. And what that means, if we were required, I don't know these numbers for sure, if we were required to generate 100 parking places and we were able to find 20, then we would do a waiver for 80. In number 2, you're doing a waiver for everything. So we would just do a waiver and then provide as much as we can. And then the same comment, we would minimize the impact up to the neighborhood and city by scheduling events having significant parking requirements during low tourist times. And finally, if feasible, make arrangements for a shuttle during larger events and suggest parking in other locations in the city, including Tolovana Park. It would take folks a while to see how this would work, And we would want the trolley and not a bus to be able to do that. And depending on parking, or I'm sorry, depending on how much traffic is outside of the plan, they could drive, back and forth. It would take some time. But it adds another way where you're making pretty much the entire city potential parking for this and adding the entertainment part of it of using the trolley.
Would you'd have to contract with the
Yeah.
transit district to do
Sure.
that, right?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
So really, you combine 3 and 4.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, you could.
So 2, 3, and 4.
Make that a beer trolley and you get a lot of riders.
The question I have is if you're scheduling, this is a tourist center, or
Mhm.
tourist center, and you're scheduling events for significant events during low tourist time. Isn't that a conflict of center's purpose versus?
I don't think so at all, because what we've been preaching is to try to get people here out of the main season.
Mhm,
So we don't need to put on a big concert in the gym to get people here.
mhm.
They're already here. So if we could do that in the spring or in the fall, and then try to make those kind of things happen, that's where I would say would be the big difference. I don't think that there's going to be many events where this is going to draw a lot of cars, because there will be people that will be walking through to see, hey, what did they create here? If we have a sporting event, there's not that many people can, participate. If it's basketball, you're kind of limited to 10 plus whoever can sit on the side. Pickleball, who knows? But it's not like you're going to have the gym full all the time. And, that's just the nature of a gym. And then the classrooms, I would love it if we could get 2 classrooms at the capacity of maybe 50 people at a time or something. But I think that we would probably see less, and then maybe somebody coming in for an art class or something, just so that I just want to see those rooms stay busy and not maxed out necessarily. So I think that doing that and trying to go ahead and having it during the off season is right with what we're asking the chamber to do. And I think it gives, possibly creates more of an opportunity for some of the things that are a little bit better for the people that are here.
The only thing I'm thinking is, say that a company wants to have a conference here, or say an organization wants to have a conference here, and they want to have it in August, because that's usually, well, maybe not here, but in other places, they say where you get their lowest cost for hotel rooms, especially hot places.
Mhm.
But say they want to have it, in December or something, sometime when we get a lot of people. And they're scheduling their big events outside of what the city control is.
Mhm.
Is that going to be a problem?
I don't think it's a problem, because if somebody wanted to do that, the McCarthy company wants to do that, they're going to have more trouble getting rooms for all of their high number of people in August. They're going to be booked out. So their likelihood of coming in here would be during the shoulder season. And then that's what we're talking about. And again, we don't need more people during, the summer. And that's, all part of the management issues that we're talking about and trying to set people's expectations.
That is an interesting problem to have.
Yeah.
At that big of a conference.
Yeah. But somebody would have to take over a couple of hotels.
I don't even think Seaside's had that big of a conference.
Yeah, they can, one of the reasons they expanded their conference center was because there weren't enough conferences that were limited to the size that they were. So they expanded the conference center to allow bigger conferences, because that was at that time, the way it was going.
Yeah.
I think it still is.
Anyhow,
Maybe not.
I think it's more of a discussion of how we manage the facility
Sure.
than the parking. We're going to try and give it as much parking as we can.
Right.
And I agree. I think 3, 4 combined is a way to work that out.
It would actually be 2, 3, and 4.
No, just 3, 4.
Well, Talking about waiving, yeah.
No, two, yeah, two is
Waiving,
waive everything. Three is you have some on site and then you waive all the rest. So it's a smaller number to waive.
there's a little bit of a tweak that we could add to 3, which would be considering our parking plan code.
Mhm.
What we claim as, we have to have a planter box every 4 spaces or whatever it is. We could ease off on some of that. That's not waiving, that's just adjusting.
Yeah.
Granted, it's what we would ask a private investor to do.
Right.
But that's a little bit of a waive process. So in a spot where 5 spaces fits better than 4
Mhm.
and eliminate the green space, we could do that.
Yeah. And also we have a big site that we could do other things.
Yeah.
So
We have Beaver Street to work with also.
Are there, at one time they had a discussion, they said there were code requirements, like state or federal, on the number of people you can have in each of these buildings.
Mhm.
I can't remember those numbers, but that itself may. And then there were also requirements, I think our parking requirements are just our city code, I think.
right. Yes.
And that we can waive. But I haven't heard discussion about making sure that, if it's certain capacity,
Yeah.
you need sprinklers, and if they're tied together, you need firewalls, and I guess the architect's gonna take care of all that.
Yeah.
But we
And-
can waive parking requirements.
You can, I don't know if it'll be, as easy as saying that, because there will have to be a public process. We'll probably, actually be applying to the planning commission. I don't know what kind of public hearing requirements are, those kind of things. And it'll be up to the council, with, assistance, of course, to justify why we're trying to go ahead and do what we're doing rather than build it all.
Yeah.
And there might be, some people that'll say, that's great, you're figuring that out. Or, I want you to have to do every parking requirement as I do, and we'll have to work through it all. So,
I think asking CETA to give us the maximum number that they can put on there.
Yeah.
And then figure out what that difference is.
Yep.
Then we have a discussion of where, what that looks like, how much can we justify?
right. And then we're also doing other things to try to offset those kind of things. But Mike, to your question about capacity, we know that the classrooms are changing use, so they will have to be sprinkled. Those won't be that much. We think we're probably, I would advocate sprinkling the gym. I would never want to have something happen because we tried to save a couple of bucks and having that many people in one location, I think it deserves sprinkler. So we've got that cost. I don't know where, we talked about it when we were talking to ZCS. I don't know how much they put in for sprinkling, but it's only after that, and we say we're going to sprinkle, will we know what the capacities are of the room.
When we look at maximizing the parking and then we waive the rest, that including a look at parking on, what is it, Beaver Street?
Sure. Yeah.
And perhaps making it one way to get more parking.
All those things will be under consideration. We would bring you the best plan that we could. And then that's what we would hope you would bless. And then that's what we would take as we go through. In the meantime, we would go on as if, well, there's two parts. CETA would go on saying, let's find all the parking that we can, cubby holes or whatever. And then assume that the council or city will be successful in waiving those requirements. If we're not able to, then it would be a situation where somebody would have to make a decision that doesn't work. You need to add another 40 or something. And then we kind of go back to the drawing board and see where we can find 40. Okay. So are we good with moving forward with 3 and 4? Because that will start with us doing some number crunching, reporting to you, but then also starting the legal process. And then as far as the food pantry stays where it is. Go ahead and we, dry it in better. and we work around, we might identify someday, if you moved it, you could do this. But in the meantime, this site actually is around the food bank. And we don't plan for inside of that. And we asked CETA to, when they're doing all the other work that's going to be associated with the building facades, that you take a look at how we can make that kind of blend in.
May I make a suggestion?
Sure.
As a manager for events, you can control how many people are able to use the site. It shouldn't be that hard. And then as far as parking goes, it should, be accommodating those numbers. We shouldn't have a crowded space.
Correct. No, Robin makes a good point. In my mind, I've never seen this as a revenue source for the city. I see it as a way to fill hotel rooms and a way for locals to be able to go ahead and enjoy that location. So with what she was just saying, potentially in this discussion that we're talking about having, we could put our own limit on it. We could say, we're not going to have, more than 24 people in each one of those rooms. And then all of a sudden the number that could be by filling the gym and all the rooms won't be, because we're saying we won't do more than that.
That's why we need to be having the management discussions alongside of this. So that's part of the,
No, Robin, that is good, because it sets another control point.
Yeah, not the
Thank you.
tail wagging the dog.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. That's what we should name this project.
Are you still, we've decided we're going to keep the pantry at the site, but are you still going to have the staff look into the costs of doing the
Other locations,
other locations?
not at this point.
Okay.
We got so much going on. If we're not really looking at it, we've got other places we need to be.
Because I am real curious to know whether or not eventually it could fit into the Tulawan Arts Colony site, in terms of the size of the pantry needed and what kind of construction and so forth we're doing.
Yeah. Okay.
Need to do.
And possibly we can do kind of a thumbnail thing, working with the management of the food pantry and say, could you make this work? Okay.
okay,
Thank you. Thank you for your patience.
through the first topic.
Yeah.
Okay,
Everything is easy from here.
the HRAP budget review.
Really wanted to get rid of that piece.
Just went off the floor.
I know, I had all my answers. Kelly, are you on?
Yeah. Let me get
it
on, she's there.
Jason, we'll get it later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just a minute.
Okay. Thanks, sir.
Hi.
Hey, Kelly.
Kelly, go ahead.
All right. So this should be pretty straightforward. So basically, whenever we created the budget for this fiscal year, there were a number of kind of small grant projects that I'm interested in doing and wanted to work on. But given the uncertainty of how many of those grants we would actually have success with and receive, we decided we wouldn't include any of them in the budget and then just do a budget adjustment as we actually received any grants. And so what I have here today is just one, just letting you know that that's the process that we're going to be doing this fiscal year. And then exciting news that I didn't even have to apply for a grant for this first budget adjustment resolution that's going to come up at the September meeting. And that's because the Friends of Haystack Rock had let us know that they will actually just give us a donation for $1,000 to replace some of our old optics that we've been using that have been gotten a little beat up and outdated. So that will be the first adjustment that we would be doing is we need to account for that $8,000 in our budget.
Great.
Okay, looks like, and then you're going to be talking about the UTV, right?
Oh, yes, thank you.
Yes.
The
The Phantom UTV.
Yeah, that has been a journey. So we had a UTV as part of our capital outlay for last year that was approved, and there were a lot of delays on the model that we wanted. We put down a deposit, but we still hadn't, the dealership hasn't received our UTV yet, so we can't make payment or set up shipping yet. So we haven't paid for it, and that will need to be moved over to this this current fiscal year as well.
So what we thought we would have it all paid for last year. We didn't spend the money. And so we have to reallocate it.
Yes.
Kelly, out of
Yeah.
curiosity, how many employees do you have for HRAP?
We have, there's myself, and then I have 2 year-round employees, 1 full-time now and 1 part-time. And then we have 17 seasonal staff.
17 seasonal staff. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
You're doing a great job, you guys.
Thank you.
They are. Okay, if that's acceptable to council, we will bring the proper documents to the meeting in September.
Okay. Good.
Okay,
Very good.
thank you. Thanks, Kelly.
Okay.
Yep.
Permitting.
What we've all been waiting for years.
Yeah. Get a PowerPoint?
We did a PowerPoint.
Oh, it's worse.
It's not
Much worse than that.
PowerPoint. Yeah, it's much worse than that. You're right.
Yeah, you wish it was a PowerPoint. This is exciting stuff.
Is there a test after this?
There's gonna be, there's going to be.
I use this all the time.
I use this all the time too. My big question was, where do you find the permit requests for new developments and applications and tree removal and that kind of thing? So that was my big question. But other than that, I use the GIS quite a bit.
Okay, let me get us on here. And then we will share screen. So others can see, hopefully. Rusty. What do you got going on
Yeah,
here?
if you want to find all those permits, you call Rusty.
Yeah, resting at home.
You want to share the?
Yeah, just put that one on.
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right, thank you. Well, let's see. Okay, now we got it. Okay, we're good.
Always click on this, make it smaller too. You click on that.
This guy.
There you
Okay,
go.
perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Rusty.
All right. And first off, thanks to Rusty for everything. Okay. Yeah, so I just wanted to show you what is available out there, and then show you the kind of what we're working towards. This is always a movement towards more transparency, more things available to citizens, more information. There was a lot of backlog, a lot of archival stuff that still needs to get scanned and put in and attached GIS wise and other, but we're streamlining that and doing everything from e-permitting to the, like I said, the archival project and making public notice a portal. So first off, this is the city's website, CI at www.ci.cannon-beach.or.us, or just Google Cannon Beach and go to the city's website. And so basically, these are the tabs: government, services, community, visitors. That's really how it's kind of grouped. Government, you'll see the agenda and minutes, plus all the boards, commissions, and committees. If you go to one of these, for instance, let's take the DRB, you see the members of the DRB, staff contacts, usually the meeting dates or those kind of schedules with application deadlines on there. So that's what we provide up there. And you'll see the city calendars listed under the government, city council. One of the sites you should go to, it's always exciting, ordinances. Go to the ordinances. This is where I often point people, well, we passed an ordinance back in 2108. If you want the details on that, it tells you when the ordinance was passed, when it was adopted. And this is that one that with the no lot combinations. I point this out weekly, it seems. And so we'll give people direction to these kind of documents. That's a handy thing along with resolutions, other things. Also goes down to under the government city manager. That's where you can find the community bulletin, the monthly reports, and then your records request forms under your city recorder. Other documents, forms and applications. I'll point to some of these just briefly, but then we'll go into some of these areas more in the few minutes here. Municipal code. Oh, I'll spend days on that if you let me. But I will show you the highlights of that here. And so if you click on municipal code, the development ordinances, those ones mainly we're concentrating on in code audit are Title 16, which is subdivision, and Title 17, zoning. Most people, Title 17 is where the action is. That's the zoning ordinances, everything from definitions. So if you're looking, what is gross floor area? If your wife's arguing with you, you're saying, no, I guarantee you it's not that. Go here. Floor area ratio means the gross floor area divided by the lot area and is usually expressed as a decimal fraction. And so if you get into an argument about that, this is where you can look. Also, you'll notice there, it says under all of these, you can go back and forth, but then you can hit this expand list, and that will usually give you the full chapter or the full wherever you're currently in. So this has everything from your typical residential, all the different zoning districts. Then it gets into the sensitive land areas from streams, flood, oceanfront, down to the setback reductions, tree ordinances, bed and breakfast. And then often a lot of things will point to general requirements and little particular things like clear vision areas and things like that. So that's basically how the ordinance is structured. Like I said, what I deal with in planning development, community development is usually Title 15 under building, then the planning and zoning, which is under 16 and 17. That's not to say other things are not found elsewhere, like short-term rental and business licensing, things like that. Some of that falls into other areas, along with road standards and street and sidewalk and driveway access and other things that are in other sections of the code. And you can always ask, and we'll be happy to answer those things. So furthermore on this, under the government tab, you also have this new quick links. So for a lot of the things we're going to be talking about tonight, building e-permitting portal can be found under here. The code enforcement complaint form. A lot of people ask me, I point people weekly to this. Code enforcement complaint form is also found under that government quick links thing. It can also be found under the services, under the police department. You'll see the code enforcement complaint form there. Even people within the departments or whatever, if they've got a code complaint, I refer them to this. I fill out these code complaint, or if somebody reports them to me, just so that we're keeping the same tracking for everything, internal and external. So that goes to Luke, and he'll respond to that. And then the staff directory. Also, if you're looking for people's phone numbers and emails, under the staff directory. So services is where our department information really lives. Those are the things that we administer, and we can update these pages. So under community development, if you go under the building tab, this is where people are contractors, people building development that want to do a new structure or something. We go to the building page here. You'll see you can schedule inspections, and now all of that is done through, like I said, back in 2018, when we started going towards e-permitting. Since I arrived, we're now using Oregon's e-permitting system, and it's all done through a central site. Permits and applications, they can find that here. Related links, that's to the other state and federal locations. But then the e-permitting portal, so you can go here, and I'm going to get into this a little bit later, but that's where that e-permitting portal lives. So let's go back. And then under other services, you'll also see, this is under community development, you also see GIS mapping, which also lives out on the front page, planning, municipal code, short-term rentals. So let me briefly, we'll go ahead and do the e-permitting while I'm on it. And so if you were wanting to look under a building permit, you would just click a search for the building permit. Easiest way, Katie says, and she's probably the most expert in our jurisdiction on this, is you'll be, if you know the street number, put in the street number that you're looking for, but then put in the street name and then hit search. And it's going to give you a list of any permit that was done for that address. So you'll see commercial plumbing, commercial mechanical, a residential electric, commercial electrical, all these different permits or inspections that were done on that site. And so you can also do under, let's just say I can clear that. You can also, like me, I just go Ross and just, so if I don't know the address or whatever, I click that and it's going to give me a plethora of Ross lanes. And you'll see Coos County, Oregon city under this agency. So it's statewide. You can find out what's happening on every Ross lane throughout the state. I mean, the excitement. But anyhow, so you can narrow it down. So that's what I want to show you. So, okay, so I don't want all of them across the state. I'm going to go to just Cannon Beach. So type in there Cannon Beach and say, I still don't know that address. I can go to this and I can see, here you go, Cannon. And you'll see that these electrical under Clatsop County, those are still in Cannon Beach, but we don't do those inspections. And electrical inspections are done by Clatsop County. And so they'll still register under that as the agency that's doing the actual review. But you'll see under here, you'll see electric, mechanical, plumbing, and then you'll see down here that DWL, that's a dwelling permit. So you can click on that and it brings up that record 164-21, and that's the dwelling. And it tells you it's for 107 Ross. And I can click on this down arrow and I say, let me look at this documents uploaded. And you'll see it's got plenty of information here from everything from permit app packet, completed plan, site plan, all those different things. Now, some of these plans aren't available because of copyright and things like that with the building plans and stuff like that. But there are things that are available. And so you'll see, you can search through here and look through that information. Also, we do planning permitting under here. And this is only recently that we've started doing our planning processes, land use actions through this portal. But for instance, let's just say I'll do one that's fairly recent. And you can search that and you'll see now that that is in here as a plan tracking. You can see the project descriptions, setback reduction for a gable roof on existing flat roof garage, SR 2202. And the same thing, you can find out record information for those things. So that's the e-permitting portion of it, how you find out information on active applications and past applications in our building permitting process. So now I want to go back to our services and then head on to the GIS mapping portion. Now, I'll tell you, you can go under the services and go to GIS mapping under that tab. But you can also go back to the website and you'll see down here along this tab bar, GIS mapping. And so one of the other things before we go there, I just want to say current topics, we update this daily. So the latest things will be up there at the top, but you can always hit that view all news and find others that had been passed. You can always do a search up here. For instance, if I want to find out more about the comprehensive plan and I don't see it on the website, I can hit that comprehensive plan and you can see comprehensive plan. It may not be the top because it's not quite to the Google logic yet, but it gets you can usually find that first page what you're looking for. And if I click on that comprehensive plan and background, it leads me to those documents for the comprehensive plan and map updates. And so going back to this, also upcoming events, same thing, that's where you can find what's on the calendar. Agendas and minutes, I cannot mention enough. This is not available all across the US. There's a lot of jurisdictions that don't keep this much data on all their past meetings, especially live video. I know if you want to watch video on any of these, you can click on them, hit that YouTube feed. It will start that meeting for any of those minutes. And the same thing with minutes, agendas, packet items, going back. One of the functions there that I often tell people, look at that from date to date. And for instance, if you want to look back further, you want to look back to 2016, put that in that 2016 date. You want to narrow it down to just the Planning Commission, hit that, apply it. It's only going to pull up the Planning Commission meeting items going back to 2016. And so you can get quite a lot of information just from that alone. Back to this and the bar, so you can also get our forms and applications. If you have to do a accessory dwelling unit, or if you're doing a 14-day short-term rental permit, you're doing something that you need some type of permit, that's where you find that. Jobs and volunteering are current jobs for the city, and also volunteering application can be found under that. Now to GIS mapping. This is where, I spend a good portion of my day. City of Cannon Beach, there are some PDF maps out here on our website. We're in the process, we continually kind of update them. As you can see, and the dates are up there, but these are broken down usually in multiple sections of the city, but they're in a PDF format so that people can print these off readily and take them with you on land use, zoning, wetlands, and other aspects of.
Jeff, I have a comment.
Yeah.
I find it very challenging to figure out where the heck I'm at with the notations that are there. It would be really helpful if we could say north end, or south end, or midtown.
For these right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and
Not something we have to do right away.
no, but easy fix. That's a good feedback. So on that GIS map, so those are the PDF maps. We also have a GIS tutorial. The one that I put in your packet is the one that's up here on how to identify map features and go to the history by location through that. And so I'll kind of cover that quickly tonight. And then GIS quick links to other sites. But the one that I point everyone to is the interactive mapping feature. Just to briefly go over what that layout looks like. You'll see over here on your left, these are your layers, and any of the GIS, wherever you go, whatever city, whether you go to the state sites, anywhere, these are your layers you're going to turn on and off. So currently, these are the tax lot lines. So you can see those white lines go on and off, which describe parcels within the city, lots within the city. Then you have this next feature, which is called GIS Dimensions. If you'll notice, that gives you the length of each one of those segments, 101 feet by 224 for our East Gower where we're sitting right now along that line. And then each one of those parcel lines is divided up to each one of those nexuses or points. Okay. Another great thing, the map tax lot, right? So a lot of people will say they just want to use the tax lot number. So you first read the 51030 AD, and then it would be tax lot 12,000. So that's how that is done. And you'll see that show up here in a number of places we go through this. But this tax lot GIS square footage, another great feature. So for this city site, 22,970 square feet, plus our parking lot in the back's another 10,000, approximately 10,000 square feet. So it takes a GIS kind of a square footage. You can look at the parking lot down there, and that parking lot's 28,000 square feet down there. And then the GIS acres, that's the same thing, just put in an acreage situs address. Okay, so that's your street address. And so that's telling you the street address for each one of these. Coolidge Avenue, 188 Coolidge there. And then you can click on the owner name. So it'll give you the owner name of each one of these properties. All right. So I'm going to keep those up here. And then I'm going to go on down. You've got your city boundary. So if I zoom out, you're going to see that our city boundary is in yellow. The urban growth boundary is in red. So they don't match up exactly. We are supposed to, as a city, say, hey, here's where we expect we might grow in the next 20 years. That's what that urban growth boundary identifies. And then the city zoning is highlighted there. And you can see over there the various districts from R2 to R1, RM, C1, C2. Those are all right there. Another one that's interesting and always to pull up, if you're making maps for people, that's the other thing we'll show you here. So if you're making maps, you might want to put the footprints on here, right, of the buildings. This is an approximation. I think it's back, 2009 when the state did this, but it's nice for making maps. If you're wanting to print something off, you can hit that print button right there, and you'll see a kind of a graphic for what that'll look. You can put your own map title in there, put it what page layout you want and a resolution, and print that off to your printer at home. So these are just some layers you can turn on and off. So that Oregon statutory vegetation line, so that's that coordinate line that goes along the coast that our oceanfront setback surveys are taken off of, and which is the vegetation line, which means this to your left is the state and to the right is the city's properties. And so this is where the state manages state park, and we manage the other. All right. I can take that off, and then the oceanfront management zone is all those that have to go by the oceanfront ordinance. Parcel slope average. So if you're about to build, our ordinances require automatically that if you're over 20, and you'll see here, these up in here, up in the hills, anything that reads over 20 has to have a geo report done for any kind of new structure or extension of the footprints. Okay. And so that's another quick one that you can easily get to. FEMA. So you want to look at your flood hazard map, click on the flood hazard map. This has the 2016, the past one, and the current 2018. So you can see the flood hazard areas. Generally, anything in the next zone, this kind of tannish color here, that's not in the special flood hazard area. So you don't have to get flood insurance. If you're in one of these AE zones or VE zones, then you may be required to get flood insurance there. So topography. So this is always an interesting one for people just to see what's available. If you click on the high spot, I think these top two are not currently working, these two check. But the contours, I'll take off the plot lines for now so you can see this. But you can see those contour lines, they're at the 10-foot level at this zoom. But if I zoom in closer, they switch to the 2-foot level. And so you can get a pretty good understanding of the topography of the area just by zooming in and out of that. And you can also, it's always fun to pull in Haystack Rock and get that as well. And so you can look at that. The other thing interesting, these are all LiDAR, so that's bouncing a ray up and down and measuring the elevation through that. And so you can see the slope models that as one of the other layers. You can also get the highest hit. So that's the highest thing it hits, usually top of a tree or a building. And so that's what that is reflecting off of and bouncing back. Sometimes take a little while for it to load, as you can see, because this is a lot of data that it's important. Another one, bare earth. So this is taking out those trees or the top and just modeling the earth underneath. And so once it builds here, you can get kind of what the earth looks like underneath it. And then if you go to geology, you can pull in what does the soils of our area look like? What are the landslide delineate areas that are delineated as issues, and then technical reports. And so you look at some of these along Haystack Rock area. Those are some of the landslide potentials out there. Wetlands, a big one in our community is wetlands, as you'll see as we start clicking this. So the wetlands delineation reports are identified as yellow dots for areas that we collect the delineation reports. The streams are in blue there. So we can go up to the north end, is always a fun area for this. So you can see the different streams, affected tax lots. So that's your wetland lots of record, anything in purple there. And then the wetland areas that are defined by our local wetland inventory there are in green. Okay. Tsunami evacuation data, I won't go into all of that, but you know, you do have your lines. So if I zoom out here, you can see where that XXL line is throughout the city and where that water would come in for extra large tsunami. It's not a pleasant sight. And then evacuation routes and other things. We'll also be updating these because they're doing some new calculations on those and are releasing those. So we expect to be updating some of that. City air photos. So this is the one thing that I don't think everyone knows, but you've got different base maps that you can use. So if I click on this 2011 color air photo, you'll see that background change. Okay, and so it's kind of a nice thing to do is to go back and forth on that and choose different ones. I use the 2011 city air photo the most is because I think it's kind of usually the most accurate, but you'll see even at these, you'll see that they're not going to fall exactly. So with any aerial photo, when it gets geo-referenced to this kind of grid that you're looking at, it's not going to match up exactly. It's within a certain degree. So you may see lot lines cutting through houses or things like that. And you got to take that with a grain of salt that you cannot use this. And that's why there's this legal disclaimer up here. You can't use this as your survey. This is not a survey document, but it does give you a lot of information. And one of the other things that it will do is you can see there's a commercial background here as well. So if you were just wanting to make a map for a classroom or something like that, you can also make these kind of maps and port those out as prints and PDFs and things like that. So let me touch on a couple other aspects of this. So that's those are the different layers that you have at your ready as part of this. So one of the things you want to learn though, is that you can measure with this as well, right? So if I want to know the distance along this stretch of hemlock, I can choose the feature here that says measure up at the top. And I can click on this. And then wherever I click next, that's giving me that 140 feet, 21 inch, 0.21 of the feet in that first segment. Next segment, okay, if I click it, then I can go to the next one. That's going to give me the next portion of that segment. And then it gives you the sum at the top. So you can do a route type of thing if you're planning a parade, for instance, for corgis or something. You can do that and get your estimated length, or you're jogging. You want to know how far you run every day. So that's something that you can do. You can get it in meters, kilometers, feet, miles, whatever you like. The other feature that I think is nice to have is this polygon feature, because then you can, hey, if I'm wanting to buy a few properties, I can do a quick thing and just get an estimate of what that square footage of that area is going to be. That's going to be 13,840 of those two lots if I wanted to combine those. So that's a quick and handy feature to have. It does it for points, lines, and polygons, so you can choose any of those and get those results. So the other, I've already pointed out the print feature. The feature I most want to point people towards is the identify map feature. So if you click on this identify map feature, then you can click on any parcel and it will give you your zoning information, whatever layers that you have up there. So it's given me, oh, I've got an R2 district lot, and then I can click on that hyperlink and it takes me to the zoning district information for the R2 district. It then also takes me to the assessor's information if I click on the assessor's link. So this takes me to Clatsop County's assessor's data, which I then can find out what are the improvements on the site, what year it was built, square footage, assessments, sales history, taxes, payments, and then the documents that are sent out to that property owner on the annual appraisal report, which goes into pretty much the details of all of those different properties. It gives you the legal description. This is Elk Creek Park, Lot 7, Block 13. It also then can pull up that tax map so I can see, and you'll see Elk Creek Park. You all see that? South of Jackson is Elk Creek Park. That means that is the subdivision plat that originally platted those lots of record. So each one of these, that's block 10. These are lots 1 through 14 of block 10 of Elk Creek Park. And this was Ecola Edition down here. This is Canona Beach. So different ones. This is the Clatsop County tax map. You can print that off as well. But that's what this is referring to. This property was platted as Elk Creek Park Lot 7. And so a lot of information there, and I refer people to this all the time. One of the things I'd like to show you as well is, so for this Elk Creek Park, if I've got that Elk Creek Park and I want to know what the survey is on that, I can go to Clatsop County, Oregon GIS. Okay. Click on their site and I go into their web maps, which is another great site. They do a great job as a county. And under their county, I'm okay with their stuff. I'm going to do a find survey subdivision. Okay. And I can put in Elk Creek. Okay. And so it identifies anything with Elk Creek, any survey or subdivision that was done under Elk Creek. I think it's this one. I'm going to click on that. Okay, and you can see over here, it identified a property in that, right? But it gives me 5 different maps. So if I click forward, there's the Elk Creek Park one right there. So I can just click on that image and it pulls up the original plat from Elk Creek. And so you get the original plat. That's the lot of record. People will say, Well, I have tax lot 1700. In this city, tax lots don't really mean anything. That's a county thing. We go by the lots of record. That is a lot of record that's recorded with the county. And so that's your guiding principle. When we did a lot combination, no lot combination, that's what we're talking about, the lots of record, not tax lots. Okay. So back to the fun. Then you've got that identify feature. I'll notice over here on my left, under the results tab, you can see it gave me that link, which I just showed you the assessors, but this history by location, click on that and it gives you anything that is under our archival for that site. This one doesn't have any, but let's go under, let's say this one. And then if I hit their history by location, you can see they've had plenty of different things. So everything from legal issue documents that were back in the history to enforcement data or letters that were written to them back in 1985 or so there's all kinds of information under this parcel. You can find out a lot about your own property through this and any property in the city. So just click on that, hit history by location, tell you tree removal, development permits, plan review, all of that's there. And we're updating that all the time from, public records, public works, our department, planning department, public works, building department, all that is up there. Okay. Then you can see all the other information, that tax lot number that I told you about, the street address, the GIS, the square footage of that lot, the acreage on that, the year the property was built, what type of residence, on down to the owner information down at the bottom. And so you can also zoom in by hitting this area thing and it will zoom into, this has got the feature, sorry. So, but that's your zoom feature. So then other ways to find parcels or identify parcels are the select tax lot and map feature. For instance, if I click on this, sorry, let me first go over here. And so under here, if I draw a point and I click on a parcel with that, and then I hit go, it identifies that and gives me the information down here, which I can hit this download button here, and that will send it out into an Excel file. Now, why is that important? Let's say I want to know every property within 100 feet of here, then I can choose that like that, go back to my map lot, put in a buffer of 100 and hit go, and it selects all properties within 100 feet down here and gives me the addresses and owners' names and everything around that. And then I can download that. And so if I'm doing a notice to 100 feet or 200 feet, that's how I do that search and pull those up. So if you're just looking for you come onto the GIS and you just want to know what's 179 Ross, or let's go 195 Ross, because I know that exists. But it didn't find it. Okay, so let me back out of here.
It was your house?
It was my old.
Gone now.
It's gone now. So I think if I go to this, and let me try it now. I go Ross. Yeah, okay, so it pulls up all of Ross Lane. And so you can do that, pull up the street. It should be doing this. So let me see. I think it's because I have to start over. Okay. Okay, now try it. Yeah, so it will pull up 195 Ross. It needed to clear out the previous search. And so that I can zoom to that property, which is 195 Ross. It gives me all of the information there. You can also do that if you just have a tax lot number to pull up. Okay. All right, and so that's pretty much it for the GIS mapping. And so I was going to show you the last thing that start over. So if something, you're not getting the results you think you should get, hit that start over and it will refresh it. One of the things that if you do this search by street address, it doesn't do well with the east-west Jacksons and the north-south Hemlocks and things. So you might just have to put Hemlock and then go to that or go by the street address there. And you can always just search by pulling it down. So let's see. So next up, I wanted to show you. Let's get some of these done here. And then let's go back to our website. Okay, back here under the planning department, under services, if you go to planning department, you can also go to our public notices portal. So this gives you any public notice that has been released in the city for any application. And so you can find out what the status of that application is, the note when it was noticed, and the if it's a hearing date coming up, when that hearing date will be. And over there on our planning website, you can also see, like I said, e-permitting portal. You can also see some of our major projects like the Cannon Beach TSP or the housing. And so for the housing, we keep all of our information updated on different reports and studies and the meetings that we're doing on the regional housing. We also have this Clatsop County, our housing strategies and how each jurisdiction is doing on that, which will be updated by the end of this month with every jurisdiction. And then if you go back to planning, you can also, one of the other things I want to show you was the short-term rentals. So if you go to short-term rentals, you will see a list. You can go to any of our 14-day permit list and it will give you sorry about that. There they are, 14-day. And so it gives you a list of everybody who has a 14-day permit, 5-year permit, any of those. You can also go to a map of that. And you can put that onto the full screen. You can zoom in to your neighborhood and find out who's got short-term rentals by clicking on it. And it will give you what those short-term rental, which are, it's updated about quarterly for this. Finally, let's see. So I think that's map and and then the task force information. So if you go to that short-term rental page, you can also get our short-term rental task force information. And so there's the mission and there is their meetings and the presentations at those meetings, and our code audit information for short-term rentals are also part of those presentations. So you can find all of that. And so we will keep updating this information. We'll keep bringing more information out there, making it easier for people to access. I recommend anybody just kind of go to the GIS, go to the e-permitting portal, go to the planning public notices, and kind of look through that information and see what is on offer out there. And if you have any questions, feel free to give us a call. And we're happy to answer any questions on how to do this. We'll be putting out more and more tutorials on these kind of things, just quicker ones where on how to we've done for the history by location or to get to certain types of documents. Any questions or any things that I missed?
So if you have a permit, somebody's applied for construction of an addition to a house, for instance, that's not necessarily an announcement that you're going to be making.
Right.
So how do we find out whether or not something has been approved or,
So you would go to that e-permitting portal and put in the address, looking for that under building permit.
okay,
Yeah, so you can just do you know, let's just say. This will probably pull up a bunch because you'll know this is a lot of different jurisdictions. So I can narrow that down by our range or by our city. And there's the ones in Cannon Beach. And so you can start narrowing it down. And then if you're good with your Google Maps, you can go back to that GIS or Google Maps and find that address and then put in that
Right.
address. So. All right. All right. Any other questions? Well, thank you for your time. And, you know, hopefully this will help some people find some questions and find some of the information they're looking for. And I know for history by location information or for people's own property, this is what I always first refer them to so that they can find that information that exists on the history of their property.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right.
Thank you. I learned something. Very good. Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you. That was wonderful.
Okay, we have concluded everything. So good of the order.
Sorry. First of all, I've called into Corgi folks and we've not been able to connect. I do know that some other folks had made contact with them and asked to change the times. And I don't know what times were suggested. They were concerned that say out to October or something was too cold and weather was unreliable. So they're not terribly warm to it yet, but we'll keep talking to them. But that's, you had asked me to do that. The other thing I want to talk about is a result of some work that Jeff and I have been doing. Mayor and I had a conversation. It's like, is there a way that we can go ahead and move more quickly? And so we went and looked, okay, now what is there that we can do to make that happen? And then when we started looking what, you know, forget that part of it. But if we were to try to go ahead and actually implement any of the things involved with the zoning, this is what happens to you from a timing standpoint. You have to work, like if you're going to make zoning changes, according to the state, you have to provide notice for 60 days in advance. And so if you were to provide 60 days, if you were, you'd say looking for implementation, you know, January 1st or something, you have to advertise what you want to do by November 1st. And you probably want to do a little bit more in case anything goes wrong. We have, if you go to November 1st, as opposed to where we are today, that's 54 calendar days away. And so what that, you know, the logic brings you around to with that is that what we're probably looking at and maybe need to talk about on September 7th, when you meet the next time with that entire group, is do we want to talk about, because we're probably going to have work that is done by, you know, current board members and current council. And then anything that, I'm not sure if I'm saying this right, but anything that happens after November 1st potentially goes to the next council. And so, well, there's been a great effort in trying to go ahead and identify the issues, all those things. Where we are in the process is that the first step was to identify the problem areas in the code, especially in those areas where the code was not supporting the comprehensive plan. And then it was, okay, now we identified these areas. We're just towards the end of that. Then it's like, okay, what changes do we want to make? And so from a timing standpoint, it looks like we're going to have a crossover, you know, from the, you know, current commission to new commission. And I don't know who might turn out, you know, on any of the other boards. So from a timing standpoint, that's the reality of the situation. That, and we need to be thinking about that when you do any kind of planning. Okay. Want to get that to you as soon as we realize it.
what kind of for the new counselors that come on and the new mayor, what kind of educational process will they have to undergo? Because I mean, there's a lot of background that we've
Yeah.
already
Yes.
established.
Yeah, and there's a couple of ways that we can go, especially with the history that we have with some land use cases that are going on. We probably need to ask people to spend a certain amount of time with us, depending on what the situation is, to get up to speed. And I think that it would be good if they were all to spend a little bit of time with staff. And then Salmon made a recommendation to me, or a discussion with me, was that maybe this council does your retreat before January 5th or whatever that date is. You can have that before, and then you can be talking about okay, now these are the things we started, these are the things we still have concerns. They can learn, can have an open conversation on that. And I think that's a good handoff. But I think that in reality, we probably need to have the new councils retreat probably in February or something, because they've got to get their feet wet and make decisions about where they want to go for a little while. It's right at the beginning of budget, those kind of things. So we'll have the usual training like ethics. I think, possibly Jeff can do a little bit more of this training that we just had today to try to maybe a little bit abbreviated. So that's the kind of thing. But and I think it's what's really important is what you folks are thinking. And so if you can kind of spend some time with them in a retreat format and let them.
So have two retreats, a retreat before January and a retreat after.
Yeah, a retreat.
They get settled.
I think the first one, call it a retreat, but it's the handoff.
Okay.
And talk about your issues. And then the next one is now that they've had a couple of meetings and then we talk about what projects we're in, that kind of stuff. And we're looking at their first budget. I mean, as a council, some of you still beyond, but the council itself is a new entity. If anybody else has any other ideas, if any of the applicant or the people that are running got any ideas on something they'd like to see, happy to put any of it on. I do think that it would, we should be a little more aggressive than what we've been in the past, doing just with ethics, and we didn't have so much going on.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
anyway,
There's a
answer your question.
lot of catch up, a lot of background that they
Yes.
need.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or thoughts? Great. Thank you, Sam.
I have a couple of things,
Oh.
two things. I was talking to the municipal court judge the other day, and he mentioned something that Eric brought up. He said that he has been dealing with in his one monthly court session, 70 to 80 contested parking tickets. And that's just a fraction of how many parking tickets are given out, right?
Yeah, they just these past 2 weekends alone, they've been giving out more than that. Yeah.
That's just amazing to me. I had to ask him to repeat that. I couldn't believe it. 70 to 80.
On that note, that the new judge is doing great.
Yeah, he seemed to be.
We're having it's interesting because obviously he's new, so he doesn't know everything yet. He's still learning, but he wants to learn. And we had a meeting set for last week where he was going to meet with some of the parking aides and myself, and I was headed to the meeting, and they were all in the parking lot on their bikes, and there was somebody with them that I didn't recognize. And I went out there, and it was the judge. He has helmet, he was on his bike. He wanted to do a ride along with them to see where they were working and what they were seeing, so he could imagine it when he's getting these complaints that come in. And so it was really awesome thinking on his part to get both sides of it.
How does that compare with when we had the lower fee? Do you have any idea how?
Yeah, we were up there. The contesting part is coming from a lot of the conversions, van conversions and whatnot, where people are making their vans into a motor home that they can sleep in. And so they're trying to park those in different areas and or in the RV spots and our signage we're working on. I know Trevor's been making some of the corrections already, but it says no van conversions, or it used to say that in those spots. And so the parking aids would cite them because they were van conversions, and now we're allowing it, but there's still different areas where people are parking them that they shouldn't be.
Yeah, I was just amazed. Yeah. The other thing is we have coffee with the counselors on Monday. And Robin, would you explain what we're doing at our regular coffee with the counselors is from 10 to 11. And what are we doing at 11?
And then from 11 to 11:30, we're going to have the Hispanic community come and share their thoughts on what they hope we can help them with. So I'm very excited about it. Jeannie McLaughlin it was her idea, and I just thought it was a terrific one. So I hope a lot of people will call in to watch or be here for it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's going to be great. So from 10 to 11, we'll be talking, anybody, of course, can come. It doesn't make any difference
Sure.
at all who you are. You can come and talk and ask questions and so forth. But from 11 to 11:30, then the Hispanic community will have its centered. So.
And the reason why is because most of them are working earlier. So our 10 to 11 time didn't work for them. And so it was really nice of the city too, and Bruce and Jennifer to accommodate that.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's my good of the order.
Anybody else? I have just one little note. I'll be going to the mayor's conference this next weekend. It's down in Newport, so that's not too bad. But it should be interesting. They got some good topics going on. I've been asked to be on a panel. Don't know why. Find out.
What's the panel on?
It's on development and financing.
Oh.
So I think I have a hint of why they want me to talk, but we'll see. I'll let you know. So I'll have a report on that next time we meet. Anybody else? For that, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.